Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of my hand history review of my biggest win ever. In this portion of the review, we are going to go from the mid stages to the money. We're going to look at how to play the bubble and how our play should adjust once we make it to the money portion of the tournament. If you haven't yet watched parts 1 and 2, I invite you to go do so as you can learn how to play the early stages of the tournament, getting reads on your table, and how to play the mid stages of the tournament to go through the chip accumulation process. If you've already watched those parts, fantastic. Let's get into the action.
Sorry, I gotta go back. Tony says he doesn't like the call pre-flop because our hand could be dominated. Our hand could be dominated. We also dominate some of the hands he has, but he says it's hard to play a hand out of position on such a small stack. Actually, the smaller your stack is, the easier it is to play out of position, because the positional advantage is applied each street. So the more streets you have to play out of position, the more of a hindrance, the more of a disadvantage it is to be out of position. But actually on short stacks where there's only 1 or 2 rounds of betting to go, the shorter your stack is, the easier it is to play out of position, because the fact that you're out of position doesn't really matter, because it's only for 1 street as opposed to 3. And people can't put a lot of pressure on you and really attack you. The fact that Queen Jack could be dominated, that's true, but because it dominates some hands, it's not like we have like 8-7 offsuit here. Because it dominates some hands and we're getting such good odds, and we play really well against, we're live against a lot of hands like ace-10s, ace-9s, pocket pairs and stuff. I think it's just kind of a must defend in this situation. The odds are just too favorable. And we can just check fold when we miss. If we flop a jack, we can go with it. A queen, we can go with it. An open-ender, we can go with it. And some gut shots, we can go with it. And on everything else, we just check fold. It's super easy to play after the flop. Okay, so king-queen. I opted to just open shove here. The reason being that I feel like if I open shove, they can only call me with. There are certain hands that they can't call me with that they would shove with. Like, I don't know if 2s would call here, if ace-2 suited would call here, but if I open for small, they may shove with those hands. Same thing, like if I open, Tony Cho could make a play with 7-8 suited, and I do have to call with king-queen. But do I want to play for all my chips as a 60-40 favorite? This stage of the game, I didn't want to. So I just went for the open shove, ran it up against ace-3 suited, and lost the race. Bad call by villain with ace-3? I don't think so, actually. Let's look. Let's run the hand through ICMIZER. See, he's getting really good odds. He's only putting in 7,000. There's an extra 3K out there. So he's only going to need about a 40% chance of winning. But let's see what the software says. The software will tell us. I'm pretty sure this is a definite call for him. Even if he's not going to have the best hands all the time, he's just getting such good odds that it's worth it. Like we see, what does he need? He needs 38%. And so our shoving range contains all these hands. And big blind should call with, ace-3 suited. No problem. Can we see? No, I don't know if we can see the exact amount he expects to profit since he's villain. But he definitely should call with any ace here. In fact, he should call with a lot of hands because he's getting the great price from the button, or from the short stack. He only needs a 40% chance of winning because there's the extra 3K dead. That dead money is really important, and that's why when you get shorter stack, you can call with more hands because there's extra money to be picked up from the pot. Does that make sense? In response to Tony, who said he'd prefer the push pre-flop because it's hard to play. It's not hard to play post-flop if you know what you're doing. And actually, if you're playing well post-flop, you can fold out more hands by defending and then making a play post-flop than you will by just shoving pre-flop. Pocket 9s. Okay, so we got 5 blinds. We're going with this hand no matter what. We go for it, get called by the short stack, called by the big stack, Good result is Rock in the Suburbs folds because our equity against 3 random hands is quite different. So let's see. Against these hands, 3s and Jack 5 suited. Jack 5 suited. 9s. Against these 2 hands, we have 56% chance of winning. Pretty good. If we put a random hand in there, our winning chance drops by over 10%. 43%. And to be fair, this guy's hands probably isn't completely random. His hand's more like any ace. Sorry, I gotta hold Alt for this. Any ace. We'll go pairs and some Broadway type stuff. We'll just go with this range to be conservative. And against that range, our equity would have dropped a lot. In fact, our chance of winning would have dropped 20%. So we were very, very happy that Rock in the Suburbs folded because it meant we had a 55% chance of winning this big pot here, a 55% chance of winning a 30K pot instead of a 35% chance of winning a 36K pot. So, 50% chance of a 30K pot, 15K EV, as opposed to a 35% chance of a 36K pot, 12.6. It's like 1.5 bigs, quite a bit. This is a spot I was curious about if it was a shove. So I want to check this in ICMIZER. I want to see what ICMIZER has to say about this. I remember saying if I had like 6 blinds, like 18K, I'd probably go all in with it. But that with like 8 blinds, I felt like I had enough. But that might have just been me being freaking nitty. Because I'm nitty. I'm nitty like that. So what do they say? They're gonna say it's profitable shove, man. Profitable shove for half a big. Is half a big worth it? Probably. I mean, if I'm passing up half a big edges in hyper turbos, I'm gonna need a lot of luck to win, which is what we're gonna see I got. But one of the reasons that I often got short in tournaments is that I wouldn't take these close spots. I would play too tight in these situations where I could be picking up chips. And even if I get called, I have a chance to play a really big pot that I might only win a third of the time. But boom, 30% of the time I have 20 bigs. And I'm in the money, so I have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So that's a flaw in my game that I can improve, is just being more at peace with variance, more at peace with taking chances, and firing the chips in the middle in spots where I expect to gain some chips, and being at peace with the outcome. Because if you're passing up on too many profitable spots like I am, you're going to find yourself short stacked a lot of the time and wondering, how do I get chips, man? How do I avoid getting short? You got to take chances, and you got to make those shoves, and you got to make those higher risk plays and embrace the variance that's going to come into play, because that's what the game's all about, is enjoying the edge and enjoying the uncertainty. Especially with the blinds going up the next hand, where I'm going to be even shallower, picking up chips is very precious. And I think that was a bad fold. We now see that it's it's no good. Now here, this is where I call with the A7. Right. See, like, what are we doing? We don't shove with A6 suited, where we have a chance to get it through. But we call with A7 suited, where we know we have to run the cards. How does this make sense? How does this make sense? It doesn't. It doesn't make sense. It's way better to shove here, have a chance to have everyone fold, and just win the pot, no showdown. And worst case, if we're called, we have a 30% chance. Then it is to call off here and not have a chance to get it through and have to run the cards. And it doesn't make sense. And the lesson here is that poker players, when they're in the moment, when they're under pressure, when they're feeling rising stakes and pay jumps and they're all caught up in stuff, they're not rational. They are emotional. And I said, I don't want to shove with ace-6 suited and get called. Meanwhile, I call with ace-7 suited because I was like, here I'm like, oh, look, I have enough chips. Like, I'll be fine. I can just rock with this. It's like, no, the blinds are going up in a minute, dude. You have no chips. And here I'm like, oh, I'm getting short and I'm getting great odds because there's the extra 11K in the middle that I expect to win. And I'm putting in 17, 18 to win a pot of 50. So I only need 37% equity, but, and we're going to see that I have 37% equity, but that doesn't mean that, like, so this is a fine spot, but the other spot was a better spot. Makes sense? And we want to be taking the best spots. Identifying every time a spot's profitable, good. Having to take every spot, no, you can pick and choose your spots. But looking at this in playback, this just makes no sense. And I definitely missed a spot. And this one's okay. We'll see how much I expect to gain. But let's look. Okay, if I shove the ace-6 suited, I expect to make half a big blind. 1,700 chips. Now, when we're going to call with ace-7 suited, we're just going to put this guy all in because he's pump faking. We're just going to put him all in. And then hero is... No. He's all in. Yeah, he's all in. Hero call, calculate. Ace-7 suited expects to make 1.5 big blinds. So actually, the expected value of both these plays is the same if he's shoving this wide. But in tournaments that are very fast, hyper turbo tournaments, you don't want to let yourself get short because then you're forced to take these spots instead of being able to choose whether or not you want to take it. So playing aggressively to avoid getting short is generally going to be the better strategy in fast-paced tournaments or tournaments where everyone is very short-stacked and shallow, where the average stack is short. So we call with ace-7 suited. We are up against, I think we're up against king 10. And we get there on the river. So nice to win that pot. But you see, we had to hold there. Yeah, we're a favorite. Yeah, we had like 60% equity with ace-7 suited against king 10 offsuit. 60%, but we had to hold in a 60% all in. With the ace-6 suited, we could have just got it through and not needed to worry about equity at all. And if you can win based on the merits of your fold equity, just pushing people off their hands and not have to worry about your card equity, your card's chances of winning, that's better. It's better to win with your betting and win with your chips than it is to have to rely and depend on your cards. All right, so ace-king. Oh, yeah, baby. Run the cards. Run the cards. Ooh. This is the one that swung everything. Suddenly we had a lot of chips. Let's run that one in ICMIZER. Back-to-back stack-ups. Boom. Paste hand history. So not only does ICMIZER show us what hands people should call with, we can see this, but we can also calculate what hands we should overcall with, which means if someone else has called, what hands we should overcall with. So we can see this guy shoving any two. This guy can shove profitably, these suited broadways and these big aces. And given that, we can come in as the third player with a hand as weak as ace-9 suited or ace-10 offsuit and still expect to make chips. This call with ace-king suited expects to net 5 big blinds, which is quite a bit. And even if we tighten up this guy's range for calling, which I think is reasonable, ace-king is just such a monster. Let's get these small pairs out of here. That it's still going to be making tons of chips. So, but you know, now we don't call with the ace-9 suit. So really, when you guys are playing with this program, mess around with the ranges. Don't just settle on the Nash equilibrium. Do play around with the ranges. Adjust it to what you think your opponents would be shoving and would be calling with. And then you'll get a more accurate readout of what hands you can call with and just how profitable they'll be. And just a reminder, guys, you can get this program for free, ICMIZER 2, at gripsed.com/free. You can get all the software we're using. There it is. gripsed.com/free. If you buy it on its own, I think it's $40, but you can get it for free as part of the bundle. So that was a big swing for us. We now have 26 big blinds, but with it being a hyper turbo, we're still just going to wait for spots. Here with nines, we're happy to play for all the chips. Facing a limp, we just raise it up. Happy to call a limp shove. He calls, we get a really favorable flop. We bet about a little bit more than half the pot, and our opponent folds. We would have definitely called a shove if he'd come over the top. Most of the hands he's limp calling with probably big cards. Did not hit this board, and if he trapped us, I mean, I chalk it up to a cooler. When I get dealt nines, 20 blinds deep, blind versus blind, I'm ready to go to the felt with it. If they have a better hand than me, so be it. C'est la vie. That's just bad luck. You don't want to get too fancy, like trying to get away from big hands and make huge folds when you're on shallow stacks. If you're 100 blinds deep, nines is not just auto stack off. But when you got 20 blinds, you got a pair of nines. You just got to rock with it. So King 7 suited here. I guess I saw the antes are big. I wanted to start stealing, and I figured it was better than whatever Soily McDiaper would have in the big blind. I don't know that I love this open, though. Then we just have to fold. Yeah, because I know that Soily McDiaper isn't going to fold, so I'm going to get exposed as playing King 7 suited. I think this is an unnecessary open. And I think in retrospect, I probably should have folded. King Jack. Much better hand. Still close. Now this is a sweet spot. We flop top pair. All the players are pretty short. I think we can check to try to induce a bluff, or we can bet really small. I don't think there's any real downside to checking. The only bad card that can come is an ace, but Lucky Luke might try to take a stab at the pot. We could get him to put it in with hands that have no chance of winning it against us, like Jack 10 or like Queen Jack. 10-9 suited, but I opted to c-bet and I got it through. Jack 9 suited. We're going to fold. We'll run it through ICMIZER though. It's curious. It's always hilarious to see just how wide you can call blind versus blind. Like, that's the spot in tournament poker where it's just insane how wide you can call. They're saying he should shove 73. If he's shoving 73, we should probably call with Jack 9 suited. Jack 9 suited we can call and expect to make 1.5 big blinds. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. What if I drop him down to 50? What if I drop him down to 50? Then can we still make money calling with Jack 9 suited? Yup. So we can make chips calling with Jack 9 suited here, but I didn't want to flip for half my chips. It's a thin edge that I'm getting, and it's a high piece of risk to go for to play for half my chips there. And again, if you want to learn more about why I choose to fold here, check out my video, When to Gamble in Poker Tournaments, on YouTube. Ooh, interesting. I remember saying against the first caller, I definitely would have called with King Queen, but facing two callers, I wasn't sure. So let's just run it again. Let's see what ICMIZER has to say. It's amazing. You just copy paste the hand history in, and it's like, you should overcall with King Queen expects to make you 1.5 chips. Crazy. Is this guy isolating with this though? No way, dude. No way is this guy isolating with this. Get all this out of here. Get all this out of here, man. That's the one thing. I think ICMIZER really overestimates just how wide people are going to isolate. So you really have to mess with the ranges. And then if we calculate it, King Queen can still be a call, but it's only making half of a blind. So again, here's a spot where I probably could have made some chips by gambling, but I opted to fold. And what were we up against? Ace 4 and Jack 9. So we would have had the right price to call, but we would have been gambling for a good chunk of our chips.
All right, and that wraps up part 3 of my hand history review of my biggest win ever, and we did it, y'all. We are in the money. The main things that I learned from this portion of the review were why it's easier to play short stacks out of position than deep stacks out of position, and why it's not such a disadvantageous position to be defending your blind on a short stack. We also learned the importance of getting people to fold out hands that are live to increase our equity in the pot, or to increase our pot share. We learned how the bubble affects shoving ranges, and man, watching that analysis after, when I didn't realize I was on the bubble and I'm giving myself such a hard time, was absolutely hilarious. And I'm really glad you guys got to experience me looking like an absolute bonehead for analyzing a play without all the variables. And we see that's the real importance of knowing all the variables in play. You know, how many players are left, what the min payout is, what the max payout is. These things matter when you're analyzing your play. And finally, we learned about when you have to make loose calls because it's all about the payouts. And once you get into the money, once you've got that min cash locked up, you've got everything to gain by gambling and nothing to lose by gambling. So take the thin edges, go for the big stack, because that's what's gonna get you paid big dollars when it's all said and done. I'll see you next week for part 4, where we go from the money to the final table.